What's up, friends? My name is Thomas, aka KLO7, and today marks the first list type of video I'll be doing. So, being in quarantine for just over a month now has prompted me to watch Geography Now because I'm bored. And on that channel, they cover every single country on Earth and give them quite literally 15 minutes of fame. And when I say every country, I mean every single country. So, while watching this, I came up with a great idea, and that is that I'll integrate this concept into a YouTube series where I will cover literally every single country that has ever had an NBA player and briefly give an overview about basketball in that country, their best players, and even their lesser known marginal players, because that's just what I do on this channel. There are just around 80 countries recognized by the UN that have had an NBA player born there, so this obviously will not be the only video. A few things I want to note before I start though. There are some players that I'm going to include that in all honesty should be present in one country that isn't. For example, Aaron Baines by all means is an Australian basketball player, but he was not born there, so I will be including him in another part of the series. Sorry to all the Baines fans out there. This will not be consistent throughout all the videos, as this is only being done so smaller countries will have more time to shine during these videos, and it's not because I think said player should identify as a different nationality or anything like that, so don't take it that way. So anyways, let's just get right into it with Angola. So one thing I'm going to do with these countries is talk about their rankings. So yes, just how FIFA has world rankings for every country with a national team, FIBA has rankings for every single national team as well, and Angola ranks 32nd in the world and 2nd in Africa. Despite this, 2 years ago, Angola never produced a single NBA player, but that changed when Bruno Fernando of the Atlanta Hawks was selected 34th in the 2019 NBA draft. He is a 21-year-old power forward who averages 12 minutes per game and is a very solid rebounder off the bench for the Atlanta Hawks, but spends most of his time with their G League affiliate. So Antigua currently ranks 81st in the world and 17th in the Americas. They only have one notable basketball player, and he did almost nothing on the NBA stage, but longtime high school and college basketball fans will be very familiar with this man, Julius Hodge. Julius has an interesting story. His dad used to bring him to Knicks games, and he got inspired to play basketball when Magic Johnson smiled at him in the crowd. However, years later, his dad was deported back to Antigua when he was 9 years old, and he hasn't seen him since. Julius became an amazing basketball player and was named Mr. New York Basketball in 2001 and was ranked the best shooting guard in the nation coming out of high school. He went to NC State, where he got sacked by Chris Paul and made an All-ACC first team. He was selected 20th overall by the Denver Nuggets in the 2005 NBA draft. So how did his NBA career go? Well, not so good. He averaged 1.2 points in 23 career games and left the NBA to play overseas and is now an assistant coach at San Jose State. He's currently the only NBA player to ever claim Antiguan nationality. So next we have Argentina. Ranking 4th in the world and 2nd in the Americas, Argentina has seen its fair share of success. They have one of the most insane stories in basketball history, where their 2004 Olympic gold medal run is only triumphed in the realm of Argentine sports history by their 2 FIFA World Cup wins. In the semifinals of the 2004 Olympics, they beat the United States of America, a team that featured LeBron James, Allen Iverson, Tim Duncan, Dwayne Wade, and Carmelo Anthony, to name a few, and were also under the direction of multiple Hall of Fame coaches, including Larry Brown, Greg Popovich, and Roy Williams. So as a surprise to nobody, Ginobili is the greatest Argentine basketball player in history, and many of us know what he did on the NBA stage, as he is one of the great foreign NBA legends. But for this segment, I'm going to focus on how good he played in that specific game. This wasn't a fluke game by Argentina. They legitimately outplayed the United States. And Manu, of course, the biggest reason why. He poured in 29 points and missed 4 shots all game, including shooting 4 of 6 from 3 and 3 assists to go along with it. He was their most valuable player throughout the whole campaign, averaging 19.2 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, and 1.5 steals per game. Other notable Argentines who have made the NBA include Luis Scola and Carlos Delfino. Argentine youngster Leandro Bolmaro is also an interesting name in this upcoming NBA draft. Argentina was ranked 4th globally by FIFA, so conveniently our next country is ranked 3rd in the world according to FIBA, and that would be Australia. Australia is the best country in FIBA Asia and has a plethora of basketball talents to show for it. Although he doesn't identify with Australia when it comes to nationality, the 6-time All-Star and NBA champion Kyrie Irving was born in Melbourne, Australia, and moved back to the US when he was 2. He could play for the Australian national team if he really wanted to, as he holds dual citizenship, but has decided to play for the US national team instead. The best player to ever come out of Australia who actually identifies as Australian is Ben Simmons. As a 15-year-old, he was selected to represent his country at the U17 championship and moved to the US to play against more formidable competition later that year. He was selected 1st overall in the 2016 NBA draft to the 76ers and has been one of the most relevant young players in the NBA ever since. Other relevant Australian NBA players include former number 1 draft pick Andrew Bogut, Jazz sharpshooter Joe Ingles, Patty Mills, Dante Exum, and Matthew Dellavedova. Next up we have Austria, which is ranked 56th in the world and 32nd in Europe. There's only been one player to ever come out of Austria, and that would be former Raptors bench mob member Jakob Poeltl. Jakob was the 9th overall pick in the 2016 NBA draft, and 2 years later he was a piece in the trade that sent Kawhi Leonard to Toronto. Jakob isn't crazy good by any means, but he's a very solid backup center for any team, and it looks like he'll find a way to stay in the league for a while. Next up we have the Bahamas, who actually have a few good NBA players. I'm not exactly sure who I want to highlight as the best or greatest player, so I'll talk about all 3 of them. Michael Thompson, also known as Klay Thompson's dad, was a high-scoring double-double guy for the Trailblazers in the early 80s, and then won 2 championships with the Lakers later in his career. Buddy Hield, who is emerging as a top 5 shooter in the NBA, was born in Freeport, Bahamas, and he is currently 2nd in the NBA in three-pointers made this season. And lastly, DeAndre Ayton was born in Nassau, Bahamas, and he was the 1st pick in the 2018 NBA draft. He hasn't fulfilled his promise yet, but he's only in his 2nd season with lots of time to grow. So moving on from the very talented Bahamas, we are going to Belarus, which is ranked 52nd in the world and 28th in Europe. Not a whole lot to talk about here. They have no players that are born there who have made it to the league. And the only reason they're on this list is because Malik Waynes, a former McDonald's All-American and a neutralized Belarusian citizen, was one of the only relevant players, if you could call him relevant, to be listed here. Now, Belgium is 37th in the world and 19th in Europe, according to FIBA. They're interesting because the best player who has ever represented them internationally was Didier Mbenga, but they have a couple of players who have made it to the NBA who were born there. Now, sorry France, you have enough NBA players for me to talk about, so I'm stealing 2 from you, and the more relevant of those 2 being future NBA Hall of Famer Tony Parker. Parker was born in Belgium and raised in France by a Dutch mother and an African-American father who played for Loyola Chicago in college. Yes, that Loyola Chicago. But Parker represents France nationally and even owns the only French team currently in the EuroLeague, the LDLC Asvel. The other Belgian NBA players include Xavier Henry and Frank Ntilikina. So Belize is ranked 119th in the world and 29th in the America zone. Nobody who was born there ever made it to the NBA, but there is one player who is somewhat interesting that identifies as Belizean. Milt Palacio was born to parents from Belize and spent 7 seasons in the NBA and is currently best remembered by this insane game winner he hit while playing for the Celtics. Half a year ago, a report came out that he got hit by a Honda Civic outside of a Toronto mall and died shortly after arriving at the hospital, but the reports were proven false later that day as people like Mike Bibby had an Instagram tribute ready for him, but decided to call him before he posted it so he can confirm that the news was real. And at the time, Milt was actively answering his phone calls and telling everybody that he's okay. It's a very random story, like who would make a false death report on such a random player like Milt Palacio, but nonetheless, not what I expected when doing research for this. Anyways, our next country is Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia ranks 45th in the world and 24th in Europe, and like other Baltic countries, has some notable NBA talent. The most notable one is Jusuf Nurkic, who is the only player in NBA history to be born in the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which was a state that only existed for 4 years in the 1990s. Jusuf would be coming back from a year-long broken leg injury if the NBA season didn't get postponed, and that is one of the big reasons why the Portland Trailblazers have sucked this season. Jusuf is a 7-foot-tall, 280-pound center who averages a double-double, and if you think 7 feet 280 is impressive, his dad is a 7-foot-tall, 400 300-pound monster who was still serving as a cop in Bosnia. A scout brought Nurk to his camp for no other reason aside from that he read an article about his 7-foot-tall dad beating up 14 guys at once. The scout came into contact with Nurk, who at that point had never touched a basketball in his life, and he's now one of the better centers in the NBA. Oh, and Mirza Teletovic is also Bosnian. You guys remember Mirza Teletovic, right? Yeah. Next up, we got Brazil, who is ranked 10th in the world and 3rd in the Americas. They've historically been a fairly successful national team, but they haven't really had any stars, just role players. No disrespect towards Nene, Leandro Barbosa, Cristiano Felicio, Thiago Splitter, Bruno Caboclo, and Fab Melo, who actually died at the age of 26 a few years ago, so rest in peace to him. Brazil has never produced any star-level players, but is tied for 8th with Spain for most NBA players from that country, so they definitely produce talent. And of course, I am going to cut the episode short by ending with Bulgaria, because the letter C nations include Canada, Cameroon, China, Croatia, and the Congo, amongst others, so no way I get into that this episode. The best player to ever come out of Bulgaria is this guy, whose name I will not try to pronounce. I hope you guys enjoyed this because I enjoyed making it. If you did and haven't already, go sub to me. Also, I did a video that is on my guy Robel's channel on who the Raptors should draft this year. We analyzed the plethora of prospects that are projected to go late in the first round, so if you're a fan of any team with a late first round pick, you should definitely go watch that. As always, stay safe, and I will see you guys next time.